when it actually reaches the people who need it, it very rarely ends up creating an independent existence for the poor. And there's many, many philosophical reasons why that comes about. And some of the problems are because Marxism has been a great informer of the evils of capitalism and the declining rate of profit and all those sorts of things. And Marxists, in a sense, don't really believe in the practical sense of getting people out of poverty under capitalism. They're much happier to say that the poor should wait and become a kind of battering ram against capitalism so that capitalism falls. So if you didn't have your poor, you wouldn't have your battering ram. Do you see what I mean? Now, I speak as a former Marxist who is greatly influenced still by the work of Marx, but can see that it has one major problem, which is it doesn't dismantle poverty. What it does do is it keeps poverty going. And if you look at the way in which the left and the right come together over aid, you can see why you need an alternative. And the alternative I came up with, which, as I live and breathe, is the most profound expression of good that has been wheeled out since the Second World War. And that is that what you do is you give the poor a hand up, not a hand out. So when I addressed myself to the poor of London as they presented themselves 21 years ago, they presented themselves as homeless. The fact that they were homeless was incidental. Homelessness is the spot on the surface of the face. If you sort out the spot, you sort out the spot because you find out what causes the spot. So if actually you want to do something about homelessness, you have to look into the machinations of society. You have to look into the bloodstream of society. You have to look into the way in which people are manufactured as homeless. And don't simply get this homeless person and put them in a home. And over the last 21 years, there have been thousands of organisations in the world who've done just that. In 1991, there were 501 homeless organisations in London alone. And they supplied everything. They supplied beds, places to eat, places to sleep, places to watch television, places to wash your clothes, a couple of hours of therapy. They even supplied condoms. And when I went to a homeless refuge on one occasion and a lot of young people arrived to hand out the condoms to the homeless, I said, when do the women arrive? And I was asked to leave because that was offensive to the homeless. And I said, no, you're offending the homeless. Why are you handing out condoms? Why are you supplying them with something they can't use? Because their lives are in tatters. And when you're homeless, you don't have a sex life, you don't have a home life, you don't have a social life, just a life that's put together. It's based on the crisis. 2 weeks ago, 2 big issue vendors were murdered just down the road in Birmingham. And they were murdered, or sorry, I'm not allowed to say that, so strike that from the record, because there's a case going on. But 2 people were killed, and the suspect is another homeless person. Because homelessness throws up a kind of discouraged, broken, vicious and nasty underlife, a society that harms and hurts many, many people who are in it. So in 1991, I said that instead of giving people, the homeless, a more comfortable berth, why don't we give them an exit strategy out of poverty? And actually, if they were not capable of having an exit strategy out of poverty, because the poverty and the homelessness was so deep that the psychological and sociological problems and the cultural problems and the philosophical problems thrown up by deprivation was so deep that you'd have to be with them forever. Nonetheless, rather than giving them another handout, why not give them a hand up? And that's why that flies in the face of the United Nations, of UNESCO, and it flies in the face of virtually every charity, with some honourable exceptions. In 1991, they were handing out aid on the streets. And I said, no. Let's have street trade, not street aid.